at your strongest competitively when you make your application, because usually it's your one chance to apply and try and be successful. If you are successful, or even if you're not successful, or even if you are successful, you can always, or you should always request feedback on your application. It's always very useful to do that. And I know with our organisation, we provide feedback at every stage of the fellowship applications. This will include information from peer reviewers. So with fellowships applications, they usually go out for external peer review, so you should receive that information back to you. And in terms of being considered before a committee, when you write your application, there will be some specialists on that committee, but there'll also be some people who have broader expertise, so try not to use jargon, so don't abbreviate sort of keywords. Make sure you sort of write it out for input of the research, and so you're the contributing author, so people will, corresponding author I should say, so you would receive requests for any publications.
Corresponding or senior?
Corresponding is usually senior. Sometimes...
So usually I'm first, then corresponding.
Yeah, or similarly, you could be senior and corresponding as well.
And I think on a broader level, just looking at where you stand and things, we need to, I always say this to people, so sometimes it's easy, you can always try again, but don't try not to focus too much.
And I would agree, I'd say the external review isn't necessarily everything. The panels are usually broad enough that they will take that into consideration alongside the information that you put in front of them. So.
It's not just the peer review comments that are considered by the committee. I should also say that Wellcome and many of the other funders also are signatories to DORA, which means that we cannot use impact factors, general impact factors, to determine a person's track record. So, yeah.
And I'm actually quite senior researcher. I have been very successful with the UK system and grant provider.
Any other schemes that we have, and I'm not just talking about Wellcome, but any other funders, it's good to just contact them because they should be able to help and advise you.
Yeah.
And from a research design perspective, so the NIH are trying to be more transparent, so about 2 or 3 times a year they do ask a layman, so a member of the general public, and then also 1 or 2 RDS advisors to go and sit into a session when they're reviewing applications, just so we can get a flavour of what they're looking for and how they assess criteria, and then we can kind of feed back to people as we're helping to support them with their funding applications. They haven't gone through, they're not very good at advertising that opportunity. So I think it's still very much embedded in the academic institute, so you have to know who to ask to have that opportunity, and they're also not so open, to be honest. They screen who they say yes to, and we've had to fight, I think, as the RDS to say, we help people to do this, so we need to know what kind of things you're looking for. So they've made that kind of a normal process that we go in just to increase transparency. But I've also heard that
But the committee, based on the work that she was doing in the niche of the area, still thought that it was necessary that the work got funded. And so in that situation, I saw work that has potential for high impact.
If I could find someone who had this skill. So starting your networks is think about identifying what you need and why. So it's not just this random, oh, that person seems important, I'll hook up with them. It's very much about, okay, what do I want? Do the research. I'm really sorry, it's just like being at uni, yeah? Do the research, find out about the person, not just what they do, but try and think about their character and their personality and what approach would work best. Make a plan. And then once you've done that, then think about how to start your network. So networks obviously are about peer group. They're about people who feel slightly out of your networks, people you feel are a bit ahead of you. And they're also about people who are made up why. So I've just had a big bit of funding in terms of being a more high-profile senior leader, and part of it was to think about my network. So when I looked on LinkedIn, I'm not going to front, they were all my friends, and friends of friends, and friends of friends of friends. And so I was like, yes, I'm being asked to speak on course on things now. So what I'm going to do is, I just make sure I network with those folk and put them on LinkedIn. And one of the things that I do is, I'm like, I just feel like we might do was embarrassed. I'm really sorry, this is what was going on. Some people will respond and some, like, you can't be perfect. But do try and plan your time well. Do you know what I mean? If you are someone who's not going to remember a face, look someone up on the internet so you know.
Time perfectly, and it's that the topics, the academic environment that we've dedicated so much energy, time, money to, that provides us with such fantastic inspiration and motivation, is often the source of really difficult areas of exhaustion, burnout, stress, distress as well. And it's really important that, I mean, the point of today is to give a language and give space to that conflict, the fact that the thing that we love and that we've dedicated quite a lot and sacrificed quite a lot for is often going to also be ideas for what we would like to achieve, and us being well allows us to kind of push that further. It affects our research output, it affects what we're getting out, what we're publishing if we've got the time for it, the quality of what we're publishing, what we're doing. Being able to work in your self-directed area, hopefully, would have sparked quite a lot of joy. But what I'm saying is that we need to give rise to all of the exhaustion that comes from that, and ensure that we are completely in understanding of what the conflict is there and how we're going to manage both of the students in our demographic that might come to us specifically because they would like to speak with someone like us and they would like to get understanding from us or like to be inspired by us. But there's also, and some people have said, that they feel like they're spending a lot of time supporting BME students and they want to, but by pouring all of that time into them, sometimes they feel like they're at odds with what their institute is paying them to do, or they feel like they can't get the time from their manager to do that. There can be difficulties that can arise from supporting your students. And I've also put here, based on some of the responses I got last year. So we're looking at inspirations. It's really, the reason why I've put it in this order is to ensure that we're talking about inspirations after talking about exhaustions. It's really obvious, but it is really important that we're giving as much energy to our inspirations as we are to our exhaustions. I think it can be quite easy to put a language to.
And out of those, some conversations with those groups, they'd identified that they felt that it would be good if, you know, if the university is going to have a coaching and mentoring kind of academy, that maybe there should be some kind of specific groupings around, if for people who wanted it, around gender or ethnicity. So anyway, so that started about a year ago, 18 months ago. It was interesting because even though we had these 3 cohorts, we all had the same training, so I'm not quite sure how that works. But one of the problems that we've had, or I'm sure some of the people mentioned it this morning, is around the numbers though, because unfortunately what happens is whilst there's a potential need for lots of BME, and we spent the last 2 days during the conference and socialising afterwards. Anyway, on the last day of the conference, there was a keynote speaker, and he was from International Greenpeace. I nearly never went because I'm just being honest, it wasn't really my kind of, you know, I wasn't really particularly interested in, or didn't know much about, you know, International Greenpeace, I should say. And I had this kind of stereotypical kind of expectation of what that speaker might be about. Anyway, so I sat in the audience and then I was surprised, you know, pleasantly, when they introduced this South African black man onto the stage, and he's in his South African, you know, clothing and that. I thought, oh, okay. I sat a little bit, you know, a bit more up. Anyway, he started speaking and I did. Anyway, so Gurnham, you've met him since. But anyway, so I saw him in the distance and he was running, and then he stopped running, and then he came running over to me and this African girl, and he embraced us and he said, oh, hello, my sisters. So I was like, oh, wow, okay. We weren't expecting that. And he said, hello, and I said, oh, you know, and he asked this, you know, African girl, you know, where are you from, you know, etc. And she gave him her story. And then he turned to me and he said, oh, you know, where are you from, my sister? And I said, oh, you're not going to know where I'm from, because we were in Milan at the time, and he's from South Africa. So I said, oh, you're not going to know where I'm from, because I'm from, you know, a place called Coventry in England.